There is a kind of fear that does not knock on doors. It does not crawl across ceilings. It does not whisper from the hallway at 3 in the morning. It does not need footsteps, shadows, or locked doors. Because the most terrifying place in the world is the one place you cannot leave, your own mind. Tell me something. Have you ever had a thought that did not feel like yours? A memory arriving without context. A sentence in your head spoken in a voice you do not recognize. A dream so vivid it lingers like evidence after waking. A room that feels subtly wrong, though nothing in it has changed. The slow suspicion that reality itself has shifted half an inch to the left. Psychological horror is different. It does not rush. It settles, quietly, patiently. It lets doubt do the work. Tonight's episode is not about what lives in the dark. It is about what waits in the spaces between certainty and perception. 6 first-person confessions. 6 minds under pressure. 6 descents into fear that may be haunting, madness, memory collapse, or something worse. Each story will begin with something almost ordinary, a harmless observation, a missed call, a forgotten face, a recurring dream. Then slowly, the edges of reality will begin to loosen. And by the final story, the question will no longer be what is happening. The question will be, who is the one noticing it? Welcome to episode 18, Scary Psychological Horror. Dim the lights, keep the room quiet, and as you listen, ask yourself one thing. If fear begins inside the mind, how do you know when it has become real? My name is Daniel Mercer, and before I tell you what happened, I need to ask you something. Have you ever known what someone was about to say before they said it? Not guessing, not predicting. I mean hearing the exact words in your mind a second before they leave their mouth. Most people would call that intuition, pattern recognition, familiarity. But what happened to me was not that, because the voice in my head did not sound like me. And eventually, it began speaking before anyone else did. It started small. That is the worst part about psychological fear. It never arrives wearing its own face. It borrows normality, a familiar rhythm, a harmless coincidence, something easy to dismiss. I was at work, Monday morning, open plan office in downtown Chicago. The usual fluorescent hum, keyboards, coffee cups, muted conversations over cubicle walls. My colleague, Jenna, walked toward my desk with a stack of printed reports. Before she spoke, I heard a sentence in my head, clear, precise, female voice, low, calm. Can you review the Q4 variant sheet before lunch? Then Jenna said, word for word, can you review the Q4 variant sheet before lunch? Same cadence, same pause before lunch, same voice. For a second, I just stared at her. She smiled awkwardly. Daniel, I laughed it off, said I was tired, because that was easier than explaining what had just happened. Tell me honestly, if you heard someone's exact words in your mind before they spoke, how many times would it need to happen before you became afraid? By the end of that day, it had happened 5 times. Coworkers, a barista, a voicemail from my sister. Every sentence arrived in my mind first, always in the same voice, not mine. Female, measured, emotionless, as if someone were reading from just beyond thought. That night, the voice spoke without anyone around. I was in my apartment kitchen pouring water. Silence. No television. No music. Just the sound of the refrigerator compressor humming. Then, you left the bathroom light on. I froze, because I had. I walked down the hallway. The bathroom door was slightly open, light spilling into the corridor, exactly as the voice said. Tell me something. If a voice in your mind notices things before you do, is it helping you or watching you? For the next 3 days, it escalated. The voice began anticipating events. The phone would ring 1 second after it said, "Your mother is calling." An email would arrive immediately after, "Check your inbox." A colleague would enter the office just after, "He's about to ask for a favor." I started testing it, deliberately, standing in empty rooms, waiting, listening. Sometimes it stayed silent, sometimes it said things that made my skin tighten. "Do not take the stairs." I ignored it once. Second floor landing, loose handrail. I nearly fell backward when it gave way in my hand. After that, I stopped ignoring it. That was the second mistake. Tell me honestly, if something unseen begins protecting you, how long before dependence feels like trust? I began listening. The voice became part of my routine, a private warning system, an invisible companion. And then it began speaking about people. Don't trust Jenna. No explanation, just certainty. A cold certainty that slid into my thoughts and remained there. I began watching her differently. Every smile felt rehearsed, every pause suspicious. Every conversation seemed to hide a second meaning. This is how psychological fear works. It colonizes interpretation. It does not show you monsters. It teaches you to manufacture them. Then came the first truly impossible moment. I was in a team meeting, 7 of us around a conference table. My manager was speaking. Halfway through a sentence, the voice in my head interrupted him. "He's going to mention your father." My stomach tightened. My father had been dead for 12 years. No one in the office even knew that. Then my manager said, "And I know this deadline falls near the anniversary of your father's passing, so if you need flexibility." I felt the room tilt. No one had told him. I never spoke about it. When I asked later how he knew, he looked confused, then said, "You told me last week." I hadn't. At least, I don't think I had. Tell me something. If memory begins disagreeing with reality, which one do you protect? Sleep became difficult. The voice grew louder at night, more conversational, less observational. It stopped describing events and started asking questions. "Do you remember the woman in 4B? There was no apartment 4B in my building. The 4th floor had only 3 units. Still, the question stayed with me. The next night, she remembers you. I began hearing faint knocks through the wall beside my bedroom, 3 slow taps, always at 2:14 a.m., every night. When I checked the hallway, no one was there, no neighboring door, no visible source, just silence, and once a whisper, "Daniel," in the same female voice, the voice from inside my head, but now outside it. Tell me honestly, if the voice crosses from thought into sound, what does that make it? I finally went to see a neurologist, MRI, cognitive testing, sleep evaluation, everything normal. Stress-related auditory ideation, they said. Work burnout, mild dissociation, reasonable explanations, clinical words, safe words, words that make fear sound manageable. I wanted to believe them. Then the neurologist looked at my chart and asked, "Who is Evelyn?" I stared at him. I had never mentioned that name. He frowned. "You repeated it throughout the scan." I had no memory of saying anything. He handed me the audio clip. Low machine hum, then my voice, barely above a whisper. "Evelyn is still here." The name hit something buried in me. A fracture in memory. A childhood image. A hospital room. A woman sitting beside my mother. Dark hair, gray sweater, kind eyes. My older sister, Evelyn, dead at age 9, drowned before I turned 7. A memory I had not consciously revisited in decades. Tell me something. If the mind hides grief long enough, does it eventually find its own way back? That night I went into the storage closet and found an old photo box. Family albums, receipts, birthday cards, and one water-damaged photograph. Me, age 6, standing beside a girl at a lake. My sister Evelyn. Only, someone had scratched her face out, not torn. Scratched. Repeatedly, violently, as if someone wanted her removed from memory. On the back, in handwriting I recognized as my mother's, Daniel said she still talks to him at night. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Then the voice spoke again, closer than ever, almost inside my ear. I never stopped. I turned, and in the dark reflection of the hallway mirror, for just 1 second I saw someone standing behind me. A girl, wet hair, pale face, dark eyes, watching, not hostile, not grieving, waiting. Tell me honestly, if the first voice in your mind belongs to someone who died before you were old enough to remember them, is that madness, or memory refusing burial? And that was only the beginning, because by the next story, the fear will no longer be a voice. It will be the room itself, watching when you are not. My name is Marcus Hale, and before I tell you what happened, I need you to answer something honestly. Have you ever told a stranger something you had never said aloud before? Not because they forced it out of you, not because they guessed, because somehow they already seemed to know where the wound was. That is what therapy is supposed to feel like, isn't it? A room built for language, a place where memory can be unpacked safely. 4 walls, soft lighting, neutral-colored furniture, a ticking clock that seems quieter than it really is, a professional listener, someone trained to separate fear from fact. But tell me, what if the person listening begins telling you what you dreamed, word for word, before you ever speak? Because that is what happened to me. And by the third session, I stopped being certain which memories were mine. This began after the panic episodes. Nothing dramatic at first. Shortness of breath, cold hands, the sense that people were watching me in ordinary places. The supermarket, the office lift, a cafe window. My doctor called it anxiety, sleep deprivation, accumulated stress, reasonable words, comforting words, the sort of vocabulary that lets you believe reality is still intact. She referred me to a therapist in Back Bay, Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Mid-40s, soft-spoken, measured tone. Office on the 6th floor of an old brownstone conversion. Bookshelves, muted lamps, a framed abstract print behind the couch. The kind of room designed to make you lower your guard. I remember noticing the scent first. Lavender, very faint, and something older beneath it. Paper, dust, rain trapped in carpet fibers. Tell me honestly, have you ever entered a room and felt as if you had already been there? That was the first thing that unsettled me, not fear. Recognition, a familiarity without memory. The first session was ordinary. Background, work stress, insomnia, a recent breakup, nothing unusual. Then near the end she asked, "Do the dreams still end in the hallway?" I stared at her. I had not mentioned dreams, not once. I asked what she meant. She tilted her head slightly, then said, "The long corridor with the red door at the end." Every muscle in my body tightened, because I had been dreaming that hallway for 6 weeks. Same corridor every night, same dim amber light, same red door, same sense that something was waiting beyond it. I had told no one, not my doctor, not friends, no messages, no journal, nothing. Tell me something. If a therapist describes your recurring dream before you mention it, is that intuition or intrusion? I asked how she knew. She smiled faintly, the kind of professional smile meant to calm. Patients often dream in symbols. That answer should have reassured me. Instead, it made the room feel smaller, because she had not described a symbol. She had described my corridor, my exact corridor, even the brass plate fixed to the red door. Number 14. The second session was worse. I entered the office and found the couch slightly angled differently, toward the bookshelf. A small change. Trivial, but enough to bother me. That is how psychological fear works. It teaches the mind to measure tiny displacements. During the session, she asked about childhood. I told her I remembered very little before age 10. She nodded as if confirming something, then said, "You always stop at the stairs." Again, a sentence that assumed shared knowledge. I asked what stairs. She looked almost surprised. The ones behind the red door. Tell me honestly, if someone continues a private dream narrative as though it were mutual memory, how long before you begin questioning your own mind? That night, the dream changed. For the first time, the red door was open. Beyond it, a staircase descending into darkness, and halfway down, Dr. Shaw, standing with one hand on the railing, looking up at me. She said only one thing, "You left something down here." I woke at 3:14 a.m., sweat-soaked, heart racing, and my phone was lit with a missed call, unknown number, timestamp, 3:14 a.m. One voicemail, no audio, just the faint sound of breathing, slow, measured. Then a woman's voice whispering, "Come back to the stairs." Same voice, her voice, "Tell me something." If your therapist's voice crosses from office to dream to phone, where does the session end? By the third appointment, memory itself had begun to feel unreliable. I started losing fragments of time, arriving at work with no recollection of the commute, finding sentences in my notebook written in my handwriting that I did not remember writing. One appeared during a meeting. 3 words, repeated 12 times. Don't open 14, I nearly left the session early, but something compelled me to go. Need, fear, the desire for explanation, maybe all 3. Dr. Shaw seemed different that day, more direct, less warm. She asked me if I had ever experienced trauma in childhood. I said no, at least none I remembered. She leaned forward, then said, "You were there when your brother died." The room went silent, because I do not have a brother, I never had. I told her that. She looked confused, then genuinely concerned. "Marcus, you've spoken about Daniel in every session." The blood drained from my face, because Daniel was the name that had appeared in the notebook, again and again. A name I consciously recognized as belonging to no one. And yet the moment she said it, a memory flashed. A boy running down cellar stairs, laughter, A fall, a sharp cracking sound, darkness, then silence. Tell me honestly, if a memory appears only after someone names it, is it recovered or planted? I confronted her, asked if she was trying some kind of memory retrieval technique. She denied it, calmly, professionally, then opened a file on her lap, session notes, pages of handwriting, quotes attributed to me, descriptions of a younger brother named Daniel, an accident at age 9, guilt, repression, every page documented in neat clinical detail. Except, I had no memory of ever saying any of it. Then she asked the question that broke something in me. Marcus, why do you keep pretending he wasn't in the house with you? The room tilted, because suddenly the dream corridor, the red door, the staircase, they all aligned with something buried. My childhood home, the basement door painted red. Number 14 on the brass utility tag, the cellar stairs, a place my mother had forbidden us from playing. Tell me something. If the mind seals away a memory for decades, does it remain yours once someone else opens it? That night, I returned to my childhood house. My mother still lived there. Same street, same maple tree outside, same creaking porch step. I asked about Daniel. Her face changed. Not confusion, not surprise, fear, then grief. She sat down very slowly and asked, "Why are you remembering now?" The room went cold, because that sentence confirmed everything. I had a brother, younger by 2 years, dead at age 7 after falling down the basement stairs. An accident everyone agreed I was too young to fully process. They stopped speaking about him, removed photos, packed away toys, closed the basement permanently. My mother said the therapist had called her 2 weeks earlier, asking if she believed I was ready. I had never given permission for that. I had never even mentioned my mother. Tell me honestly, if your therapist is speaking to people from your past without your consent, what exactly are they trying to restore? I went back to the office the next morning, 6th floor, same building, same address, only the suite was empty. No furniture, no bookshelves, no abstract print, just dust, bare floor, and a leasing notice taped inside the glass. Vacant for 11 months. The receptionist downstairs told me no therapist had occupied that office in nearly a year. Dr. Evelyn Shaw had died in a car accident the previous spring. Then she handed me something found in the mailbox, an old patient intake form. My name, my signature, dated 11 months earlier. At the bottom, in my own handwriting, help me remember what happened to Daniel. I still dream the corridor, still see the red door. But now when it opens, someone is already standing at the bottom of the stairs, a small boy, looking up, waiting for me to admit I was the one who let him fall. And now the night grows quieter. The stories are over, but the feeling they leave behind is not. Because psychological horror does not end when the narration stops. It follows. It lingers in the spaces between thoughts, in the moments just before sleep, in the silence after a sound you cannot explain. Tonight, we did not walk through haunted houses. We did not stand in forests, hotels, trains, or forgotten roads. Tonight, we entered the one place every listener carries with them. The mind. And perhaps that is why this episode feels different. Because no locked door can keep out what already lives behind your own eyes. A voice that should not know your thoughts. A dream that leaves fingerprints in waking life. A reflection that moves before you decide to move. A memory that arrives wearing someone else's grief. A future that feels strangely remembered. A name that sounds familiar, though it has never belonged to your life. Tell me something. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever stood in a room and felt certain you had already lived that exact moment? Have you ever looked at your own face in the mirror and for just a second felt like a stranger was looking back? Have you ever remembered pain that you cannot trace to any real event? Because if you have, perhaps tonight's stories touched something deeper than fear. Perhaps they touched recognition. The most unsettling thing about the mind is not that it can imagine horror. It is that it can blur the line between what was imagined and what was lived. And once that line begins to fade, what remains certain? Maybe that sudden thought in the dark was never yours. Maybe the dream you woke from did not fully end. Maybe the memory you keep replaying belongs to a version of yourself you no longer are. Or maybe the mind is far less private than we have always believed. So tonight, as the room settles into silence, Listen closely to your own thoughts. Pay attention to the memories that arrive too vividly, the faces that appear in dreams, the corners of the room that seem slightly different in the morning, the reflection that blinks a fraction too late. Because fear does not always knock. Sometimes it remembers you first. You've been listening to Mr. Haunting Whispers TV, where the scariest stories are the ones that stay with you after the lights go out. If tonight's whispers found their way under your skin, make sure you return for the next episode, because next time, the horror may not come from the mind. It may come from what has been waiting just outside it. Until the next whisper, sleep lightly, trust your thoughts carefully, and if a memory feels too real to be yours, do not follow it too far into the dark.
You've been listening to Mr. Haunting Whispers, where every truth leaves a scar. If the story unsettled you, good. That means you were listening. Subscribe and stay close to the dark, because the next whisper might be for you.